The sky above Lysara glowed with soft shades of amber and violet, a light that seemed almost alive as it filtered through the tall emerald trees. Birds with silver wings darted between the trunks, their songs carrying across the gentle hum of a new colony waking to another day. Queen Althea rode in her sleek hovercraft along the outer path of the settlement, her eyes scanning the horizon. She had traveled far from the center of the city, where humans had built their research facilities, to witness the world beyond the walls. Here, the air smelled sweeter, the grass felt softer beneath the hovercraft's magnetic lift, and the forest seemed endless. The colony had been established only a year before, yet humans had already made remarkable progress. Towers of transparent alloys stretched above the treetops, and laboratories buzzed with activity. Humans were still learning about the planet, mapping the forests, measuring the air, and searching for signs of intelligent life. Yet, for all the science, there was a sense of unease. Lysara felt alive in ways that no scanner could measure. There were whispers among the colonists about the forest watching them, but no one could explain why. As Queen Althea guided the hovercraft along the edge of a clearing, her attention was drawn to movement near the trees. A small figure, barely taller than a human child, stepped forward from the shadows. The child's skin shimmered like glass, translucent and faintly glowing, as though tiny rivers of light ran beneath the surface. Its eyes were large and dark, reflecting the amber sky with an intelligence that startled even the seasoned soldiers accompanying the queen. The hovercraft slowed automatically as the child approached. There was no fear in its gaze, only curiosity. Queen Althea's heart beat a little faster. She had seen many alien creatures during her travels across human-settled worlds, but this one was different. It seemed aware, not of technology, but of the humans themselves, as if it could feel their thoughts. One of the scientists standing nearby whispered urgently, "Your Majesty, we should keep our distance. We do not know what it is capable of." But Althea held up her hand, silencing him. Something told her this moment was different. Something told her that fear would not help her understand this child. The alien child stopped just a few feet from the hovercraft. It tilted its head slightly, examining the queen. Then, in a gesture that startled everyone, it stepped closer. Althea instinctively placed a hand on her chest, not out of fear, but out of awareness of the connection she felt forming. The child reached forward, lightly touching her shoulder, and then whispered in a voice that sounded almost like wind through the leaves, "Your chest is warm." The scientists and soldiers froze, unsure of what they had just heard. The queen's mouth opened in shock, and she covered it immediately, trying to hide her reaction. Her pulse quickened, not from danger, but from something deeper, something she could not yet name. The child did not speak again. It simply stared, as if waiting for her to understand. Althea took a deep breath and decided to step out of the hovercraft. The soldiers protested, but she waved them back. She felt a connection to the child that was beyond reason, beyond protocol. As she approached, the child's glow seemed to pulse softly, in rhythm with her own heartbeat. The forest around them seemed to quiet, the wind stilling for a moment, as if the planet itself were watching. The queen knelt down to meet the child at eye level. "Who are you?" she asked softly. "Where did you come from?" The child's large eyes blinked slowly, considering her questions. Then it reached out again, this time touching her chest lightly, just above her heart. It made no sound, but Althea felt warmth spread through her, a warmth that was not physical but emotional, as if the child could sense her courage, her fears, and her hopes. A scientist whispered behind her, "Your Majesty, it could be dangerous. We don't know its biology." Althea did not turn. She felt that the child meant no harm. In fact, it seemed to recognize something uniquely human in her, something more than logic or strength. Something she had always known was the core of humanity, empathy. The child's eyes shone brighter, revealing faint patterns under its skin, almost like symbols of light moving in time with its heartbeat. Althea realized that the child was communicating, not with words but with a kind of energy, a language of feeling. And it was not just her who could feel it. The soldiers nearby, though tense, felt a strange calm settle over them. The child was teaching them something they did not yet understand, that warmth and courage could be recognized, even across worlds. Althea carefully removed her hand from her chest, letting it rest at her side. The child's gaze did not waver. She felt a strange pull, a sense that this meeting was the beginning of something far larger than the colony, something that could change the understanding of life itself. She stood slowly, keeping her eyes on the child. "We will take you to the research facility," she said, her voice calm but firm. "We will learn from each other." The child nodded ever so slightly as if it understood the decision, and then walked beside her, its small steps light on the soft grass. The journey to the research facility was quiet. The soldiers followed at a distance, wary but respectful. Scientists whispered to one another, speculating about the child's origin, its biology, and the strange warmth it projected. Yet none could fully grasp what they were witnessing. There was no fear in the child's presence, only curiosity and trust, and an understanding that reached beyond words. Inside the facility, the child was placed in a secure observation room. Machines scanned it in every possible way, yet the results were inconclusive. Its body did not match any known life form, its energy signatures were unique, and yet it seemed to thrive near humans, particularly the queen. Althea stayed with the child, speaking softly, not expecting words in return, but hoping that her presence alone might communicate something. Hours passed. The child explored the room slowly, touching surfaces, observing equipment, yet never fearful. Althea watched, realizing that this was not an ordinary encounter. The child had chosen them, or perhaps it had been sent to find humans for a purpose they could not yet understand. Every time the child came near her, the warmth in her chest returned, a reminder of the first moment they had met. It was a small, powerful connection, one that no technology could measure. Later that evening, Althea walked to the observation window and looked at the sunset over the forest. The sky blazed with colors that seemed to mirror the glow of the child. She thought about the words whispered to her in the clearing. "Your chest is warm." Simple words, yet filled with meaning she could not fully grasp. The queen understood one thing clearly: this child was not a threat. It was a reflection of what humans could offer the universe: warmth, courage, and empathy. The night grew quiet. The colony lights twinkled in the distance, and the forest beyond the walls shimmered under the twin moons. Queen Althea returned to the observation room and knelt beside the child. It turned its large eyes toward her, and for a moment no words were needed. The child reached out, touching her hand, and she felt that same warmth, as if the universe itself were reaching through this small being to acknowledge the human spirit. The first day of encounter ended, but the queen knew that nothing would ever be the same again. Humanity had reached Lysara seeking knowledge, yet what they had found was far more profound. They had found a mirror, a teacher, a being that could see the heart of humans and respond in kind. And somewhere deep inside, Althea understood that the child's simple words, spoken so softly in the forest, were not just a greeting. They were a message, a promise, and perhaps a warning. "Your chest is warm," she whispered to herself, covering her mouth again, though now with a sense of wonder rather than surprise. Tomorrow, she thought, they would begin to understand each other. Tomorrow, the journey would truly begin. And in that moment, the forest outside seemed to hold its breath, waiting with them. The first step of an extraordinary story had been taken, and Queen Althea knew that the fate of the colony, perhaps even humanity itself, was now tied to the small, glowing child who had appeared from nowhere. The morning on Lysara arrived with a gentle, golden light, spilling through the tall windows of the research facility. Queen Althea stood near the observation chamber, watching the small alien child move with a quiet curiosity. It explored the room slowly, running its translucent fingers along the edges of tables and the smooth surfaces of consoles. Its glowing veins pulsed softly, a rhythm that seemed to match the queen's own heartbeat. Scientists bustled around, trying to measure and understand the child, but no tool, sensor, or scanner could fully explain what they were witnessing. Each time the child touched a human or came close to the queen, warmth radiated outward, subtle but undeniable. Some researchers whispered to one another that this warmth was energy, while others suggested it was some kind of biological response. Althea watched silently, sensing that the child was not simply responding to humans. It was communicating with them in a way no one fully understood. Dr. Loran, the head scientist, approached her cautiously. "Your Majesty," he said, "the child shows unusual readings. Its metabolism does not match anything known. It adapts quickly, almost as if it is learning from our behavior." "I see it learning," she said, "not from machines or words, but from us, from how we feel." She turned toward the observation chamber and watched the child kneel to examine a small plant. Its fingers traced the edges of the leaves, and a faint glow spread outward, illuminating the room with a soft light. Even the scientists seemed captivated, forgetting their notes for a moment as they watched. The queen remembered the words whispered in the forest. "Your chest is warm." Those words had not been a simple observation. She now realized they were a recognition, a form of connection. The child could sense human qualities, courage, empathy, and perhaps even hope. Althea understood that the child had chosen humans for reasons she could not yet explain. Later, Althea decided to spend time alone with the child, despite the scientist's objections. She entered the observation room, her steps quiet on the smooth floor. The child turned toward her immediately, its large eyes reflecting curiosity and something deeper, almost like understanding. "You do not need to be afraid," Althea said softly. "I will not let anything harm you." The child tilted its head and then stepped closer. Its small hand reached out and touched her chest lightly. Again, warmth spread through her, gentle and reassuring. This time, she did not cover her mouth. Instead, she smiled, feeling a connection that went beyond words. The child seemed to respond to her emotion, glowing a little brighter as if acknowledging the warmth. Althea realized something important. The child did not understand humans through language alone. It understood their hearts. Word of the Queen's bond with the child spread quickly through the colony. Some humans were fascinated, believing that this encounter might be the key to peaceful relations with unknown civilizations. Others were skeptical, fearing that the child could be a spy or a threat. The council held a meeting to discuss the situation, but Althea insisted on attending in person. "Your Majesty," one council member said, "we cannot ignore the possibility that this child is dangerous. Its presence is unlike anything we have encountered. I believe it is drawn to humanity because of qualities we cannot manufacture: our courage, our empathy, our will to protect one another. We will prepare, of course," she said calmly, "but we will not let fear decide our actions. Sometimes trust is the greatest weapon we have." When Althea laughed quietly at a small mistake made by a scientist, the glow intensified, spreading warmth throughout the room. One afternoon, the Queen decided to test the connection more deliberately. She placed a hand over her heart and focused on calm, confident thoughts. The child moved closer, resting its small hands lightly against her chest. A bright pulse of light radiated outward, and Althea felt a profound sense of understanding pass between them. She realized that the child could perceive not just physical warmth, but the essence of human emotion, the courage and empathy that defined their species. The scientists observed this silently, amazed. Dr. Loran whispered to his assistant, "It's as if it can read the human soul." No wonder it chose the Queen. It recognizes the strength in her heart. Althea realized that it was not just her warmth that the child sensed. It was the collective human spirit, the drive to survive, protect, and explore. Suddenly, an alarm echoed through the facility. Sensors had detected a strange energy reading near the outer borders of the colony. The Queen rose immediately, instinctively holding the child close. Soldiers and scientists rushed to analyze the data. Dr. Loran spoke urgently. "Your Majesty, this is not normal. We've detected another energy signature similar to the child's, but it's much larger, possibly a fleet of unknown ships approaching the planet. And keep the child safe." She looked down at the small being beside her. It gazed back at her, unafraid, its glow steady. Somehow, Althea felt that the child understood the danger and would act when needed. As the hours passed, the alien fleet became visible in the sky, a formation of sleek, dark ships that seemed almost alive. Their energy radiated outward, scanning the colony. The soldiers readied weapons, while scientists tried desperately to communicate with the approaching fleet. The child, however, remained calm. It stepped forward, raising its hands slightly, and a gentle pulse of warmth spread from it, washing over the observation room. The energy sensors detected an unusual spike. The child's presence was affecting the environment in a way no human technology could. Althea watched, her mind racing. "It's protecting us," she whispered. "Not with weapons, but with something deeper." The Queen realized that the child had a power humans could not yet comprehend. It was not a weapon, not in the traditional sense, but it was a force of connection, a bridge between species. The council debated furiously. Some urged immediate attack, others suggested surrender. The Queen remained silent, focusing on the child. She felt that the bond they shared was more important than fear, more important than immediate strategy. That night, the child rested beside her in the observation room. Althea placed a hand on her chest, feeling the warmth she had come to recognize as their connection. The child responded, resting its hand on hers. For the first time, she understood the meaning behind its whispered words in the forest. "Your chest is warm." It was not a simple observation. It was a recognition of what made humans special, their ability to feel, to connect, and to act with courage even when facing the unknown. The queen knew that tomorrow would bring challenges, but she also knew that the child had given them a chance to face those challenges differently. Humanity had often relied on weapons and technology, but this child reminded her that empathy, courage, and understanding could be even more powerful. As the moons of Lysara rose high above the forest, Althea looked at the child and whispered, "We will face whatever comes together." The child's glow pulsed gently in response, a silent affirmation of the bond they now shared. Outside, the forest seemed to settle, as if the planet itself recognized the presence of these two beings, a human and an alien, connected in a way that could change the fate of the colony. Althea felt a renewed sense of hope. The child was not just an alien visitor. It was a teacher, a guide, and a reflection of what humanity could offer the universe. The first day of danger had passed, but the real journey was only beginning. Queen Althea understood that the future of the colony, and perhaps of humanity itself, depended not on weapons or shields, but on the strength of the heart, the courage to trust, and the ability to see beyond fear. The alien child touched her chest one last time before settling to rest. "Your chest is warm," it whispered softly, the words now familiar and filled with meaning. Althea smiled, no longer surprised, no longer afraid. She understood that this warmth was more than a sensation. It was a message, a promise, and a guide for the days to come. And with that, the colony of Lysara slept under the twin moons, watched over by the queen and the small, glowing child whose presence would shape the destiny of all who called the planet home. The following morning, Lysara's sky burned with the first signs of trouble. The twin suns rose slowly, casting long shadows over the forest and the colony. From the observation deck of the research facility, Queen Althea and her council could see the alien fleet hovering at the edge of the planet's atmosphere. Sleek, dark ships glinted in the sunlight, their movements precise and coordinated. Sensors read energy levels far beyond human technology, sending a ripple of tension through the colony. Soldiers hurried across the command center, preparing defense systems and reviewing strategies. Scientists worked feverishly to analyze the fleet's patterns and predict their next moves. The air was thick with worry. Yet amidst the chaos, the small alien child sat calmly in the corner of the room, its glowing veins pulsing steadily, its eyes focused on the approaching ships. "Doctor." Loran leaned toward the queen, his voice low but urgent. "Your Majesty, their energy signature is similar to the child's, but much larger. If these beings are hostile, we could be wiped out in hours. It is our guide, and I trust it to show us the right path." It was more than physical warmth. It was understanding, recognition, and courage. She could feel it even from across the room, a gentle pulse of energy that calmed her racing thoughts. The first ships of the fleet descended into the lower atmosphere, scanning the colony with brilliant beams of light. The soldiers braced, aiming their weapons at the alien vessels. Althea remained steady. "Hold your fire," she commanded. "Let us see what the child can do." The fleet paused mid-orbit, their coordinated movements faltering as if something beyond technology was affecting them. Althea stepped closer to the child, placing her hand over her chest. The warmth spread outward, and the child responded instinctively, amplifying the pulse of energy. It was as though the bond between them allowed the queen to channel human courage and resilience into a form the alien fleet could perceive. The ships wavered, scanning the colony again, but unable to penetrate the invisible barrier of connection. Dr. Loran stared in disbelief. "It's incredible. The child is using its energy to interact with the fleet. Somehow it senses human intent and projects it outward." Soldiers gripped their weapons tightly, unsure whether to follow orders or respond to instinct. Althea stayed calm, her hand resting over her chest, the pulse of warmth steady and reassuring. The child stepped closer, placing its small hands lightly against her, amplifying the energy flow. A sudden spike of light radiated from the child, visible even from the observation deck. The fleet froze, their scanning beams dimming as if the energy itself had disrupted their systems. The soldiers gasped, and Dr. Loran whispered, "It's like the child is speaking a language we cannot hear, but they understand it." It was communicating, showing the alien fleet that humans were not weak or dangerous in the usual way, but strong in ways that mattered. It was not technology that defined humanity, but courage, empathy, and unity. Hours passed, and the fleet slowly began to retreat, their ships lifting higher into the atmosphere. The soldiers exhaled, relief flooding the command center. Scientists recorded every detail, amazed by what they had witnessed. The queen lowered her hand, feeling the warmth of the child still pulsing gently against her chest. She smiled. The first real test had been passed, not with weapons but with heart, yet the danger was far from over. The council warned that the fleet might return, larger and more organized. Some members suggested building more advanced defenses, others argued for immediate evacuation. Althea listened patiently, weighing their advice. She knew that preparation was necessary, but she also understood that the true defense of humanity was not in weapons alone. She spent the evening with the child again, observing how it responded to her emotions. It seemed drawn to bravery, to calm confidence, and to genuine care for others. When she focused on fear or doubt, the child's glow dimmed. When she focused on courage and hope, the glow intensified, radiating outward in waves that seemed almost tangible. Althea realized that the child could perceive the essence of human spirit, not just individual emotions but collective intent. The next day, she convened a meeting with her senior officers. "We have a choice," she began, her voice steady. "We can rely solely on weapons and strategy, or we can embrace what makes us human. Courage, empathy, and trust, these are our greatest strengths, and this child has shown us why. I propose we continue to work with it, to learn, and to act with understanding before aggression." The child had shown them that their uniqueness, their ability to care, to protect, to act bravely, was a power no alien fleet could ignore. Althea returned to the observation room where the child sat quietly, its glow pulsing softly. She knelt beside it and placed a hand over her chest. "We face them together today," she whispered. "And we will face whatever comes next together." That night, the colony slept uneasily. Soldiers patrolled the perimeter while scientists continued their studies. But in the observation room, Althea and the child rested, connected in a quiet understanding. The queen reflected on the day's events, realizing that humanity had often relied on weapons, technology, and strategy to survive. Yet today they had learned something new. Their greatest strength was not in machines or plans, but in courage, empathy, and unity. She thought about the fleet, their advanced technology, and the uncertainty they brought. The child had shown that these things could be countered not just with power, but with qualities that were uniquely human. Althea felt a sense of hope she had not experienced before. The future of the colony, the future of humanity on Lysara, might depend on this connection, on the ability to act with heart even in the face of the unknown. The queen closed her eyes and placed a hand over her chest once more, feeling the warmth radiate from within. The child mirrored her gesture, its glow steady and calm. Together they sat in silence, two beings connected by something far deeper than language or technology, a bond of understanding, courage, and trust. Outside, the forest of Lysara whispered in the night wind, the twin moons casting silver light over the trees. The colony slept, unaware of the quiet force that had defended them, the small alien child whose warmth and presence had shown humanity a new kind of power. And in the observation room, Queen Althea smiled softly, no longer afraid, no longer uncertain. They had faced the unknown together, and they had emerged stronger, united by the invisible thread of connection that bound them both. The first real confrontation had passed, but Althea knew it was only the beginning. The child had shown them the way, not with weapons, but with heart. And as she looked at its glowing form, she understood clearly that humanity's journey on Lysara, and perhaps beyond, would depend on this bond, this understanding, and the courage to act with empathy even in the darkest of moments. For the first time, Queen Althea felt certain of one thing. Humanity's strength was not measured by firepower or technology, but by the warmth in their hearts, the bravery to stand against the unknown, and the ability to connect across worlds. The child had reminded them of that truth, and nothing could take it away. The morning sky over Lysara was calm, almost deceptively so. The twin suns rose slowly, casting long, golden rays over the colony. In the command center of the research facility, Queen Althea stood with the alien child beside her, both observing the distant fleet that had lingered in orbit for days. The ships had not moved closer, but their presence was undeniable, a constant reminder of potential danger. The queen knew that hesitation could be costly. She had spent the past days understanding the child, exploring the connection they shared, and realizing that its abilities were not limited to observation. They could influence the fleet itself. Today, she decided it was time to act deliberately, to trust the child fully, and to demonstrate the true strength of humanity. "Prepare the observation deck for direct projection," she instructed. The scientists glanced at each other nervously. Your Majesty, are you sure? The fleet. Sensors were aligned to measure the effects, but Althea had learned that no human device could fully grasp what was about to happen. This was beyond technology. It was a connection of minds and hearts, a resonance that reached past barriers of language and species. The child stood at the center of the observation deck, its small hands lifted slightly, veins glowing faintly under its translucent skin. Queen Althea approached and placed a hand over her chest. The warmth that had been their bond since the first encounter pulsed outward, and the child responded instinctively, its glow intensifying. A low hum filled the room, subtle at first, then stronger, vibrating through the floors and walls. The scientists recorded the readings in awe, their voices hushed. The queen felt the warmth expand, not just from her own heart, but from the child's response to it. Together, they formed a wave of energy, invisible to the eye, yet perceptible to the alien fleet. The ships paused in orbit, scanning the colony once again, but their systems faltered. Beams of light wavered, energy pulses fluctuated, and the fleet seemed to hesitate. It was as though they were sensing something beyond technology, beyond force. The queen understood. The child was projecting humanity itself, the courage and empathy that defined them, and the fleet was perceiving it in a way they could not ignore. "Stay calm," Althea whispered to the child. "We show them who we are." Together they sent a ripple of warmth outward, reaching through the atmosphere toward the distant ships. The effect was immediate. The fleet slowed, their once precise formation becoming scattered. Lights flickered along their hulls as if acknowledging the pulse of connection. Dr. Loran could hardly believe what he saw. "Your Majesty, it's like they recognize us, but not as enemies. As something different." The glow that emanated from it now filled the room, spilling beyond the walls into the skies and reaching the fleet in orbit. The ships halted completely, their engines silent for a moment. The Queen sensed that the alien commanders, if they could be called that, were aware of the emotion, the courage, and the unity being projected. Outside the observation deck, the forest of Lysara seemed to shimmer with reflected light. The wind slowed, the leaves rustled softly, as though the planet itself acknowledged the extraordinary moment. The Queen understood that the child was more than a bridge. It was a translator of spirit, conveying the qualities of humanity in a language that transcended words and weapons. Hours passed, and the pulse of warmth continued. Scientists monitored energy fluctuations and recorded data, but none could fully explain what was happening. The fleet's movements became deliberate yet cautious. Ships began to pull back slowly, as if reconsidering their approach. Althea felt a profound sense of relief but remained vigilant. She knew that the moment was fragile, that any misstep could still lead to conflict. Yet she also understood that the child had shown the fleet something vital. Humans were not to be underestimated, not because of firepower, but because of their hearts and their courage. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the fleet began a slow, organized retreat. The Queen watched as the ships lifted into higher orbit, their formation still intact but no longer threatening. The glow of the child dimmed slightly, its energy returning to a calm, steady pulse. Althea placed a hand over her chest again, feeling the warmth linger, a reminder of the bond they shared. The command center erupted in cautious celebration. Soldiers lowered their weapons, and scientists whispered among themselves, amazed by what had just occurred. The Queen remained silent, kneeling beside the child. "You did well," she said softly. "We faced them together." Althea realized that this was not just a tactical success, but a lesson for humanity. Courage, empathy, and unity could accomplish what weapons alone could not. Later that evening, the Queen walked through the facility with the child at her side. They passed laboratories, gardens, and corridors where humans and alien technology intertwined. The child observed everything with keen interest, occasionally reaching out to touch a glowing plant or a smooth console. It was curious, yet cautious, as if learning how humanity expressed itself in small, ordinary ways. Althea thought about the future. The fleet had retreated for now, but their presence would not be forgotten. Other colonies might face similar threats, and humans would need to be ready. Yet she also knew that the child had shown them a new form of defense, one rooted not in aggression, but in the strength of the heart. That night, as the twin moons of Lysara rose, the Queen sat in the observation room with the child resting against her shoulder. She reflected on the journey that had brought them here, from the first moment in the forest when the child had whispered, "Your chest is warm," to the victory over the fleet. Each step had revealed a new understanding, a deeper appreciation for what it meant to be human. The child stirred slightly and whispered softly, its voice like a gentle wind through the trees. Althea smiled, understanding the meaning behind the words even without translation. The bond between them was no longer just connection, it was trust, guidance, and recognition of humanity's potential. Outside, the colony rested, unaware of the quiet heroism that had protected them. The Queen knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, but she felt a renewed sense of hope. With the child beside her, she believed humanity could face the unknown with courage and wisdom, turning fear into strength and uncertainty into opportunity. Althea placed her hand over her chest once more, feeling the warmth of the child's touch. "We have learned something today," she whispered. "Our strength is not just in what we can build or fight, but in who we are. And who we are is enough to face the stars." The Queen knew that humanity's journey on Lysara, and perhaps in the wider universe, would be guided by this connection, by the courage to act with empathy, and by the understanding that true strength comes from the heart. As the night deepened, Althea whispered softly, remembering the words that had started it all. "Your chest is warm." This time, she did not cover her mouth. She smiled, feeling the full meaning of the words, a recognition of humanity, a bridge to understanding, and a promise of hope for all who would follow. The child rested against her, glowing softly in the moonlight, and the Queen felt certain of one thing: the warmth in human hearts could light even the darkest corners of the universe. And together they would face whatever came next, not with fear, but with courage, empathy, and unity. The days that followed the retreat of the alien fleet were filled with quiet reflection and preparation. Queen Althea walked through the colony alongside the small, glowing child, observing humans at work and in conversation. The child moved freely, curious about everything, yet always close to her, as if drawn to her presence by some invisible bond. Its glow pulsed softly, a gentle reminder of the strength and connection they shared. The colony had changed in subtle ways since the encounter with the fleet. Humans were no longer driven solely by fear of the unknown. They had begun to see themselves differently. Courage and empathy were no longer abstract concepts. They were tools, just as important as weapons or shields. Althea could see it in the way her people worked together, sharing knowledge, offering help, and supporting one another with renewed determination. Dr. Loran approached the Queen as she paused near the observation deck. "Your Majesty," he said, "the data from the fleet encounter is extraordinary. The child's energy combined with your presence seems to have communicated our intent directly to them. Not aggression, not surrender, but understanding. Courage, empathy, unity. These define humanity in a way that no alien technology can fully grasp." When Queen Althea focused on calm, confident thoughts, the child amplified them, sending pulses of warmth and light outward. Scientists measured the effects, but no machine could fully capture the subtle messages of courage, hope, and goodwill being transmitted. One evening, Althea stood on the observation deck with the child. The twin moons of Lysara rose high, casting silver light over the forest and the colony. The Queen placed a hand over her chest, feeling the warmth spread outward. The child responded, resting its hands lightly on hers, and the glow intensified. "Do you understand what they are?" she whispered. "Do you know who we are?" The child was not just observing, it was reflecting the best of humanity back into the universe. The alien fleet returned to orbit, this time moving more slowly, their formations deliberate but not hostile. The Queen and the child positioned themselves on the observation deck, hands over their chests, radiating warmth outward. The fleet paused as if sensing the connection, and a strange calm settled over the colony. Even the soldiers felt it, a reassurance that went beyond reason or weapons. Althea realized that this was an opportunity to establish something permanent, a bond, not just a temporary ceasefire. She focused on courage, empathy, and unity, and the child amplified it, sending a clear, visible pulse of light toward the fleet. Slowly, the ships responded, lifting higher and forming a new pattern that seemed almost ceremonial. Scientists recorded every detail, noting the subtle energy shifts and the reactions of the fleet. They had witnessed something unprecedented, a peaceful resolution achieved through human qualities, amplified by the alien child. It was not diplomacy, not negotiation, not threat. It was understanding, trust, and courage made visible. Days turned into weeks, and the fleet maintained a steady orbit, no longer threatening. Humans began to communicate with them more directly, guided by the child's abilities. The alien vessels moved in response to the pulses of warmth and energy, establishing a pattern of interaction that both sides could recognize. Queen Althea realized that a new form of diplomacy had been born, one built not on words or weapons, but on the shared recognition of intent and character. The colony thrived under this newfound understanding. Scientists studied the child's energy, learning how to harmonize it with human emotions. Soldiers trained to act with calm and courage, knowing that their unity could resonate across worlds. Citizens went about their lives with renewed confidence, seeing themselves as part of something larger, guided by principles that could protect them even when technology failed. One morning, as the queen walked through the central gardens with the child, she noticed something remarkable. Plants and trees near the child's path seemed to respond to its presence, their leaves shimmering faintly. Althea realized that the child's influence extended beyond humans. It was connected to the world itself, sensing harmony and reflecting it outward. "Do you see it?" she whispered. The child's eyes met hers, glowing softly. It reached out, touching a leaf, and the shimmer intensified. Althea felt warmth spread through her chest, a deep sense of connection not only to the child, but to the planet, the people, and the universe itself. She knew then that the child had come to Lysara for a reason. It had chosen humans because of their potential, their capacity for courage and empathy. And in return, it had given humanity a gift, a way to be recognized, understood, and respected across the stars. The queen spent the evening in quiet contemplation, reflecting on the journey from the first day the child had appeared in the forest. She remembered the whispered words, "Your chest is warm." They had seemed strange at first, but now she understood them fully. The warmth was a recognition of humanity's essence, a bridge between species, and a reminder that courage and empathy were more powerful than any weapon. As night fell, the twin moons cast silver light over the colony. The queen sat with the child resting against her shoulder, glowing softly in the moonlight. The warmth spread through her chest, a steady pulse of reassurance and connection. She smiled, no longer covering her mouth, no longer afraid. The child had shown them the path, and humanity had followed with courage. In the days that followed, humans and the alien fleet began to interact in small, deliberate ways. Ships moved in synchronized patterns, responding to pulses of energy from the child and the queen. Exchanges of knowledge began, not through words alone, but through shared recognition of courage, empathy, and understanding. It was a new kind of communication, one that transcended species, language, and even technology. The queen realized that this was the beginning of a larger journey. Humanity had been recognized not for its weapons or strength, but for its heart. Other civilizations would come, and humanity would face new challenges, but now they had a guide, a living reminder that their true power lay in their capacity to care, to act with courage, and to unite across differences. One evening, Althea stood on the observation deck, looking at the colony bathed in the silver light of the moons. The child beside her glowed gently, and she placed a hand over her chest. "We have come far," she whispered, "and we will go further together." Together, they projected a gentle wave of light outward, a silent message to the fleet and the universe. Humanity is here, and it is strong, not because of weapons, not because of machines, but because of courage, empathy, and unity. The forest of Lysara shimmered softly in the moonlight, and the colony slept peacefully beneath the stars. The queen and the child remained on the observation deck, connected by warmth, trust, and understanding. Queen Althea smiled, realizing that humanity had discovered something far greater than technology or power. They had discovered the strength of their hearts, a force that could guide them through the unknown and make them recognized across worlds. As the night deepened, Althea whispered once more, remembering the words that had started it all. "Your chest is warm." This time she did not cover her mouth. She smiled fully, understanding the depth of their meaning. The warmth was not just physical, it was recognition, connection, guidance, and hope. The alien child glowed softly against her shoulder, and the queen knew that together they had created something enduring. Humanity had faced the unknown, had stood firm without violence, and had shown that its greatest power was the courage, empathy, and unity that lived in every human heart. From that night onward, Lysara became a symbol, a beacon for the universe. Humans and aliens alike recognized that strength was not always in dominance, but in connection. The child, small and glowing, became a living emblem of hope, reminding all who saw it that courage and empathy were forces stronger than fear, stronger than aggression, and stronger than any weapon. Queen Althea looked out at the horizon, the twin suns already rising for a new day. She knew that challenges would come again, that new civilizations would test humanity's resolve. But she also knew the truth she had learned with the child. The heart of humanity was its greatest weapon, its brightest light, and its truest guide. And with that, she placed her hand over her chest, feeling the warmth pulse in rhythm with the small, alien child beside her. Together, they faced the future with courage, trust, and hope, ready for whatever the universe might bring.